सभी को नमस्कार, greeting and pranam. Good afternoon to one and all. On the occasion of the third precursor talk of Shiksha Shilpi, a new initiative and brainchild of Vigyan Bharati, I, Dr. Ajay Mahajan, National Convener, pleased to welcome you all the dignitaries present for this webinar and members of this virtual guest house spread over across the nation and abroad. The present eminent personality includes teachers, guardians, science lovers, Vigyan Bharati Karyakartas, and office bearers. A warm welcome to you all. Especially, I welcome today's guest speaker, respected Dr. B.N. JAGTAP from IIT Mumbai, and also the mentor of Shiksha Shilpi, Dr. Arvind Ranade. I also welcome to Mr. Manoj Savaikar and Dr. Jayant Joshi, who is from BARC, Mumbai. My dear friends, as we all know that Vigyan Bharati is a science movement with Swadeshi spirit and hence popularly known as Swadeshi Science Movement of Bharat. Eminent scientists and institutes of excellence that are working for the development of science and technology in our country are closely associated with Vigyan Bharati. Together, we thrive to propagate science in society and create themselves to make use of science and technology for the overall development of the country. Vigyan Bharati also aims at revisioning and revitalizing science education by including Swadeshi spirit to realize national goals. The science teachers are not just communicators, but are creators of scientists and technologists of the future. We consider the teacher as the backbone of our education system as well as the architect of the society. Keeping this in mind, we are rolling out a module for science teacher named as Shiksha Shilpi. Friends, I believe that by participating in this conclave, we are in the right place and the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of ideas and scaling up of good practices in education. I am confident that you will find new ideas, fresh energy, and novel partnership to sustain your efforts in support of Shiksha Shilpi through POST, that is, Program for Orientation of Science Teachers. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Arvind Ranade, the first and most successful national convener of Vidyarthi Vigyan Manthan, which is India's largest science talent search examination for New India using digital devices. Presently, Dr. Arvind Ranade is working as a scientist F in Vigyan Prasar, which is an autonomous body of Department of Science and Technology. Dr. Arvind Ranade is the Sanrakshak of Shiksha Shilpi program. His support and guidance is the most precious in developing Shiksha Shilpi's program and has always been fruitful in Shiksha Shilpi progress. I invite Dr. Arvind Ranade sir to throw light on this unique Shiksha Shilpi program by revealing the highlights of registration for teacher participation and also request to introduce Dr. B.N. Jagtap sir, Dr. Arvind Ranade sir.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर अजय महाजन जी, जो कि आज हमारे शिक्षा शिल्पी के राष्ट्रीय संयोजक भी हैं। और आज एक बहुत बड़ा अच्छा दिन है, जो आदरणीय प्रोफेसर बी.एन. जगताप जी का सानिध्य हमको मिला है। और जगताप जी के बारे में आज मुझे परिचय करते समय बड़ा गर्व महसूस होता है। और हमारे जगताप सर की जानकारी के लिए और आप सभी के जानकारी के लिए मैं अवश्य दो शब्द शिक्षा शिल्पी के बारे में बताना चाहता हूं कि शिक्षा शिल्पी का जो कार्यक्रम है वो हमारे विद्यार्थी विज्ञान मंथन के कार्यक्रम की नींव में रखते हुए पिछले 5 साल से जिस प्रकार से हमने शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में विद्यार्थी और एक अध्यापक का एक दूसरे के बीच संवाद और सुवाद होना चाहिए, इस सभी चीजों को ध्यान में रखते हुए शिक्षा शिल्पी का निर्माण हुआ है। और शिक्षा शिल्पी के माध्यम से एक शिक्षक अध्यापक एक विद्यार्थियों के जीवन में क्या महत्व रखता है, और विद्यार्थी सिर्फ अपना स्वयं का करियर के लिए काम न करते हुए अपने जब करियर के साथ साथ देश का विकास करने के लिए किस प्रकार से अध्यापकों के ऊपर निर्भर होते हैं और अध्यापकों की क्या भूमिका होनी चाहिए, इन सभी के कार्यक्रमों की उद्देश्य लेके हमने शिक्षा शिल्पी कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत की है। और अर्थात जगताप सर जैसे एक महान व्यक्ति जिन्होंने इस विषय के ऊपर अपना बहुत कार्य भी किया है और उनके बारे में इनका इतना गहरा अनुभव है, तो मुझे लगता है कि आज के कार्यक्रम में जगताप सर जी का जो उद्बोधन होगा वो हमारे सबके लिए प्रेरणादायी होगा। और मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि इनके विचार हमारे सभी शिक्षा शिल्पी विद्यार्थी विज्ञान मंथन के सभी समूहों के लिए भी उत्स्फूर्त रहेगा। और साथ ही में जितने अध्यापक गण पूरे भारत में हमको देख रहे हैं और सुन रहे हैं, उनके लिए भी एक जोश भरा प्रोग्राम होगा। एक जानकारी के रूप में मैं सबसे साझा करना चाहता हूं कि दिस शिक्षा शिल्पी हैज बीन with the precursor talk series we have launched on 1st of August, and registration is open to the teacher community right from the primary to the higher secondary. And as of today, the registration has crossed 1100 number across the country, and we are going to have very meticulous kind of an training programs in a days to come. So I urge all the teacher community across the country, please come forward and visit our objectives and the training modules that we are planned for all of you. And the Professor Jagtap like people are most important, who are going to be the guiding post for all of us. And I'm pretty sure that today's talk by Jagtap sir is going to give us a lot of insight about what the teachers should be, what is the role of a teacher in reshaping not only the career of the child, but how his leadership is going to help for building the nation as well. Today, I got an opportunity to introduce Professor Jagtap. So it's my great pleasure to let you know what Jagtap sir is all about. So Professor Jagtap is a senior faculty member in the Department of Physics at Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai. Until 2016, he served as a distinguished scientist and director for chemistry group at Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Mumbai. He is a recipient of award and honor, including Homi Bhabha Award for Science and Technology, Senior Visiting Fellow of Center for Chemical Physics, Canada, Professor Rai Dastidar Award for Atomic and Molecular Physics, Platinum Jubilee Lecture Award of Indian Science Congress, H. Jagadguru Shankaracharya Award for National Eminence, ASG Jaikar Award of Indian Science Foundation, and many more. Currently, he is also associated with councils and committees of higher education. He is a co-author of a book entitled Re-Engineering Higher Education in Maharashtra. I think the experience and the personality that today we have is going to benefit and enlighten us on the various aspects of education, and of course the science education in more particular. So without taking much time, I directly invite Professor Jagtap to enlighten us with the word of wisdom from you. Thank you, sir. So your mic is mute. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And my screen is visible?
Yeah.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ranade, Dr. Mahajan, and Vigyan Bharati, every one of you, for giving me a platform to talk about what I have been talking to the teachers in this country for the last 4 to 5 years. And this is going to be a small gist of what I have been talking. And I hope you enjoy this. The style of presentation that I have today is more a narrative style. I'm not going to go into the philosophy of education, psychology of education. However, all these things are embedded into this. This style is inspired by the great storytelling tradition of India, that is the Panchatantra, Hitopadesh, and Jatak Kathas. I must inform you that ancient Indian education system had two components. The first component was a formal component where a student would go to a teacher and teach things in a formal manner. And there was another layer of informal education. And this informal education was imparted through wonderful stories of Panchatantra. This is what Vishnu Sharma did to educate three stupid princes. And these stories, they were not only the bedtime stories, they had lots of meaning to it. And you can read the Hitopadesha, the stories embedded within the stories, so that even if you miss one part of the story, you still continue to appreciate what is going on. And that is what is going to be the style here. Friends, let me start with something as a different perspective altogether. That is the education as a social system. And we know what is a social system. A social system implies an orderly arrangement with interrelationships existing between individuals, groups, and institutions, and forming a coherent whole structure. So education is also a social system. It has got the schools, colleges, it has universities, teachers, students, parents, and the country as a whole. And what we need is a coherent whole structure for education. Now, the sociologists also say that each social system has its own basic parameter of relevant quality. That is, every social system can be defined in terms of one parameter. And this relevant quality is termed as the symbolic generalized medium. We call it as SGM. And just to give you an illustration, what are the symbolic generalized media of various social systems? Now I have put in here, economy relates to profitable, non-profitable, plus minus payment distinction. And therefore, the symbolic generalized medium is money. If there is no money, there is no economy. Politics relates to plus minus power distinction. So symbolic generalized medium is power. If there is no power, there is no politics. Religion relates to plus minus faith. So for faith is the symbolic generalized medium. If there is no faith, there is no religion. The judicial system relates to legal, illegal, or just, unjust distinctions. And the symbolic generalized medium is law. If there is no law, there is no judicial system. Ask the question, what is the symbolic generalized medium for education as a social system? The education relates to plus minus, less or more, passing on and acquiring of knowledge. And therefore, the symbolic generalized medium for education is learning. Remember this is the most important message that one should take. The learning is the essence of education. It is the only objective and it is the sole expectation. Therefore, We may have a school building, we may have a college building, we may have teachers, we may have students, we have parents, we form a social system. We may have books, but if there is no learning, there is no education. And therefore, all we teachers need to say that what we are doing should converge towards learning process. And when we talk about learning, what is the ancient wisdom? And India in ancient times had dwelt so much on how to learn. And some of that wisdom, I'm going to put it forward in this particular presentation. The most important one, the one which I like, is here. Acharyat padamadatte padam shishya swamedaya sadbrahmacharibhya padam kala kramena cha. Padam is 1/4. So you get 1/4 from the teacher. Acharyat padamadatte. Padam shishya swamedaya. 1/4 the student gets from his own intelligence. Sadbrahmacharibhya padam. 1/4 you get from your fellow students by discussing with them. And padam kala kramena cha. And 1/4 only with time. Only with time means with practice. So these are the 4 components. 1/4 you get from teacher, 1/4 get from own intelligence, 1/4 from the peers. And this is where we have been always arguing during this lockdown period, that when I am teaching online, I'm not permitting that 1/4 from the peers, the discussion among them. And that is the most important part in the education. And 1/4 with practice. And it's a perfect thought and teaching and learning process, and applicable to students and teachers alike. The teachers also should learn from their peers, and teachers also should learn with time. They should keep practicing. Since I just mentioned to you about online teaching, look, this concept, which is an ancient concept, is put in the MOOCs model. And how it is moved? The MOOCs also have got 4 components. The learning dialogues, then you can see the learning by doing, there is learning extension trajectories, and learner experience interactions. So in the learning dialogue, you have the contents. In the learning by doing, you have activities and exercises. And in learning extension, there are resources which a teacher puts so that the student can enlarge his knowledge. And then there is a 4th component, focus on questions for discussion and peer interaction. And this exactly is that ancient wisdom. The 1/4 from the teacher, 1/4 from the practice, 1/4 from own intelligence, and 1/4 from peers. It's a wonderfully put in the MOOCs model. However, in our education system today, we have forgotten this principle. And therefore, these 4 components, what is talked about, let's not say that 1/4 is from the teacher, means teacher's responsibility is 25%. It is not. Padam Shiksha Sudemedaya, that means the student, intelligent student does not know his capability. How does he know his capabilities? It is for the teacher to expand his capabilities. So that is what is also responsibility of a teacher. In the modern education system, we say that, well, the teacher also has to engage students in the classroom discussions. This is what is covered in the Sad Brahmacharibhya Padam. And then the teacher also should give sufficient exercises and sufficient things for the student to practice. So it becomes a 100% responsibility, however, divided into 4 different parts. So this is what we have ignored for quite some time. I would also like to inform you the concepts of teaching, learning, teachers and learners from Nanul. Now, I have brought you some discrete ideas here. There is an ancient literature full of how we teach, how do we learn, and so on and so forth. This is a wonderful work, the Nanul. It's a book on Tamil grammar by Jain monk Pavananthi Munivar. It was written around 12th century or early 13th century. And I must thank Sri N.R. Murali, who is the director of Zonal Institute of Education and Training. I keep visiting that center for discussing with the teachers, and he introduced me to this particular work, the Nanula. Now, let me, since those who are from Tamil Nadu will certainly know about this particular book, but for others, I would like to introduce. The Nanul proposes 32 teaching techniques. Now, the way it is described is so wonderful. Today, also, we know the teaching techniques and we teach them in terms of what are the activities to be done. But look at the way Nanul describes it. It describes teaching as flow of water. It describes it as lion's sight, leap of a frog, and eagle's sight. So once you once you know what it is, you can start doing it. For example, flow of water implies putting forward the subject matter in a continuous flow for learner to grasp without distraction. Today, in educational philosophy, we talk about the cognitive load. The cognitive load is of two types, the intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is, well, there is a subject which is difficult and that load has to be taken. However, if the teacher does not explain it right, he's going to add an extraneous load, and the good education would mean that there is no extraneous load. This is what it said, your teaching should be like flow of water. Take care of the extrinsic cognitive load. Lion's sight, what does it mean? When a lion is eyeing for his prey, it is not swayed by the other movements. It concentrates on the prey. This means lesson should be taught with the full concentration. And also, the lion has different strategies for different preys. And therefore, the teacher should motivate his lecture according to the mental and physical aptitudes of the learner in order to achieve the objective of the lesson. What is the simile with a fog? A fog, when it lifts without any vigorous movements. It's a smooth, casual, and graceful. And therefore, a teacher should deliver his lecture in a casual and a graceful manner. It should not be labored one. And the eagle aims sharply and catches its prey without much difficulty. In the similar manner, the teacher should not labor around while teaching. In just one attempt, the teacher should put across the point. If he does not do it, and then he keeps saying, oh, I mean, look, you're going to create a confusion in the mind of a student. So your approach should be like an eagle's sight. How wonderfully these teaching techniques are described in that work. And just one more piece, the types of teachers according to Nanul. And I would like to read it for you. The immethodical teacher is like a jar of marbles, because marbles in a pot lie in confusion. The inaccessible teacher is like a rough palm tree, because its fruit is inaccessible unless it drops of itself. The half instructed teacher is like a cotton holder, which receives little by little with difficulty and dispenses little by little with great difficulty. And the teacher who neglects his students is to attend to others is like a coconut tree that leans over to drop its fruits into a stranger's ground. In the modern educational sciences, we have the Glickman's categorization of teacher. I think all teachers would know. The Glickman categorizes them in three categories: low abstract cognitive level teacher, medium abstract cognitive level teacher, high abstract cognitive level teacher. But then a perfect thought is immethodical teacher is a jar of marbles, because the marbles in a pot lie in a confusion. It provides you a correct idea what it means, whereas the Glickman's characterization is more theoretical. Now, this is what has been our teaching ideas in the past. And these teachers and these teaching methods, this created these ancient Indian universities. We talk about only Takshashila and Nalanda, but we also need to talk about the Vikramasila, Vallabhi, Nagarjuna University, Jagadalla University, and Kanthalore University. They were across the country, from east, west, north, south. And the highlights of these universities were those great teachers. And for those teachers, for learning from these teachers, the students from abroad used to come to these places. What happened? How did we lose that tradition? It is not only the destruction of these universities by the invaders, but why the thought went out of the system. Just I said earlier that in India, there was an informal component of education that was to the stories of Panchatantra, Hitobadesha, Jatak Kathas, and so on and so forth. And they used to fill in those ideological gaps which existed in the formal education. But we just lost it out. And we just forgotten about the second layer of our education system. And we need to brood over, we'll keep talking about it as we go along. Now, what really happened, I'm not going to deal with the history of it, but just few lines are very much essential. The first one is the Battle of Plassey, which set up the colonization of India. The beginning of Industrial Revolution in Europe, 1760. Now, this is where the education also changed in Europe. Until that point of time, the education in Europe was piloted by the religious ideas. But once the Industrial Revolution took place, then there were different ideas. The different ideas were crystallized in the form that if the able-bodied men and women go for work, then the children can be put in the school. And then somebody thought, if the children are in the school, why not impart some skills to them so that when they grow up, they can be used in the industry again, back in the industry. So that's how the model for education got developed in Europe. The discovery of steam engine 1815, which essentially destroyed the skills in India. India became just a market for the goods which were produced in Europe. And then the English Education Act 1835. We may blame British, but then if you look at the Industrial Revolution, how the education shaped in Europe, the same thing was tried in India. Basically, in Europe, you had the education to make people for the industries. And then in India, you didn't have the industries, so you needed only clerks. And that's how the English Education Act introduced the ideas of generating clerks in this country. And unfortunately, we continued that education till yesterday. And we'll see that what did we do and how did we progress. Now, this is just about 75 years of history, and it changed the entire education. And what do we see today? The effect that we have today is here. The India is facing great learning deficits. From at one stage when we were leading the world in the knowledge creation and teaching, now we are facing the learning deficits. And this is some data which I have brought from the 13th annual status of education report. Don't mind this, but this is the reality. 50% of students of class 5 and 25% students of class 8 from government schools lack basic reading skills. Only 25% students of class 5 and 44% students of class 8 can do divisions correctly. The dropout rate, 4.86 of the primary students, 28.62% of secondary school, and 42.8% of the upper secondary school drop out before completing the targeted education. And in the age group 14 to 18, 24% could not count correctly, 40% could not add weights in kilograms, 14% could not recognize map of India, 36% could not name the capital of India, 21% could not name the state in which they live, and 58% could not locate their state on the map. Next year, 2019 annual status of education reports also highlights the same thing. Alarming lack of age-appropriate skills, and close to 6 crore children in elementary schools do not have foundational literacy, numeracy, and cognitive skills. And this is where the new education policy also points to. The truth of the matter is, today we are failing the majority of our children. This is something what we need to remember. The second point which I would like to take it across is the PISA shock of 2009. PISA is Program for International Student Assessment by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and it measures the scholastic performance of 15-year-old students in mathematics, science, and reading skills. India took this assessment in 2009 and was ranked second last among 173 participating countries. Two schools, one from Tamil Nadu, one from Himachal Pradesh, participated in this assessment. After 2009, we did not participate. Okay, what does the assessment say? And this is a real eye-opening. The students in Tamil Nadu, India attain an average score comparable to or higher than those for Himachal Pradesh, India, and Kyrgyzstan, Panama, and Peru, but lower than all other participants in PISA 2009. In India, 17% students are estimated to have proficiency in reading literacy. This compares to 81% of students performing at or above the baseline level in reading in OECD countries. In India, 15% of students are proficient in mathematics, at least to the baseline level. This compares 75% in OECD countries. In India, 16% of students are proficient in science, at least to the baseline level. This compares to 82% in OECD countries on an average. What is this PISA test? PISA test is nothing great. PISA mathematical literacy test asks students to apply their mathematical knowledge to solve problems set in the real world context. And PISA reading test does not measure the extent to which the students are fluent readers. It tests whether they are able to construct, extend, and reflect. Remember these three words, and we are going to work on these three words in the whole of this lecture. And in all this, our students fail. And I want to bring some bad news before I talk about the good news and how do we handle this particular thing. India has decided, thanks to this government, decided to participate in PISA test in 2021. And some schools have been selected and they have the regular training is going on. But much before the test has happened, there are some reports. And this is one thing which caught my eyes. But even with its best government schools being tested, India is still likely to come near the bottom of the PISA table. This will not come as a surprise to the government, which is already aware of the declining education scores over the past decade, thanks to the school assessments conducted by the ACER India. And this is where we need to discuss, how do we rediscover Indian education? At one point of time, we were so great in education, we were so great in research. And how do we create that strong educational leadership in this country so that we can feel proud of the education sector of this country? And what has happened in the first instance is we need to discover the teaching techniques. And I will be going through that step by step. If I exceed my time, please excuse me, but I would like to take it across. And why do we want to do this? Not only get #1 position in the world, but remember, every time you use that word demographic dividend. In 2018, India's working age population has grown larger than the dependent population. And this bulge in the population of the working group is going to last till 2055, 37 years. And we know such periods of demographic dividend are used by most of these Asian countries for rapid economic growth. Japan, Singapore, China, South Korea have given the years. And if such a phenomena has to happen, we need to train our students. We need to train our younger generation in a proper manner. We cannot afford to waste this period of demographic dividend on account of our failure in educating younger generation. The question that we ask now is, how do we achieve this? It's a big job that is in our hand. And this job can be done only by we teachers. Okay. Now, how do we do this? And that is where I bring it to you what J. Krishnamurti says. To ask the right question is far more important than to receive the answer. And read the next line. The solution of a problem lies in the understanding of the problem. The answer is not outside the problem, it is in the problem. So if we understand the Indian education system as of now, we honestly discuss what are the problems in it, then we can always find solutions to it. We don't need to look around and don't need to borrow solutions from elsewhere. So what I'm going to do is, let's try to understand the problem itself, and then we will also suggest what are the solutions which are possible. Now here, I start one by one, the problem areas in Indian education and how can we address them. Well, often it is said that rote learning is the biggest problem in Indian education. And mind you, this problem has been talked in every education policy. Pre-independence and post-independence, every education policy has talked about rote learning. The new national education policy also talks about this. Early grade schooling does not lay emphasis on reading, writing, and speaking, or on mathematical ideas and thinking, but moves quickly to rote learning. Well, I'll show you something which came from the first education policy in this country. And this was given by the Lord Curzon. When he became Governor General of India, he wrote to all vice chancellors of the universities that time. And I'll read it out, the important portions of this. It is of no use to turn out respectable clerks, munsif, and wakils if this is done at the expense of the intellect of people. A people cannot rise in the scale of intelligence by cultivation of memory alone. Memory is not mind, though it is a faculty of mind. And yet we go on sharpening the memory of our students, encouraging them to the applications of purely mnemonic tests, stuffing their brains with the abracadabra of geometry and physics and algebra and logic. Teachers get carried away by the same fundamental error as their pupils. And instead of thinking only of the mental and moral development of the students committed to their care, are absorbed with the percentages and passes and tabulated results. This is true even now. So every education policy has talked about the rote learning, the menace of rote learning. And the question is, how do we get rid of it? Now, let me pose few issues. Now, let me just digress a little bit. And as an example, you have students and you tell them that, look, I'm going to give you some statements which are the Newton's first law, and tell me which statement is correct. Now we start saying a body at rest remains at rest, or in a motion remains in a motion at a constant velocity unless acted on by a net external force. Then there's another statement, every object in a state of uniform motion will remain in that state of motion unless an external force acts on it. Motion cannot change without an unbalanced force acting. An object continues in its state of rest or of uniform motion unless compelled to change that state by an external force. An object at rest will stay at rest forever as long as nothing pushes or pulls on it. An object in motion will stay in motion, traveling in a straight line forever until something pushes or pulls on it. And final statement which I'm putting here is all objects resist changes in their state of motion. They tend to keep on doing what they are doing. Ask your students, which of these statements is the correct phrasing of Newton's first law of motion? I have done this experiment, and therefore I'll appeal to you, do this experiment. And what our students tend to do is they try to remember what is taught to them by their teacher, which is exactly the definition in the book, and they try to match whether that statement matches with one of these statements. And then they say, sir, I'm not very sure because this is not the statement which is taught to me. Then I say, look, I have taken it from very respectable sources. Lumen Learning, Stanford University, Physics Conference, NASA, Science, How Stuff Works, Physics Classroom. So is there any problem? No, this is where the student gets confused. He has done the rote learning. The Newton's first law, he has rote learned. And therefore, he has a confusion. And therefore, let me come to the first conclusion. Students will do rote learning if we teachers demand the exact wording. And that is what most of us do. My children have been always complaining about their teachers, saying that, look, they want the exact wording. If I write in my words, They don't like it, they don't give me marks. So, but if you give credit based on his or her understanding of the concept, he and she will not take recourse to rote learning. And why do we teachers demand exact wording? This implies that the teacher must be thorough with the subject. A doubt in the minds of teacher opens the floodgates for rote learning, and this is what has been happening. And this is where we need to work. We all teachers need to work. Let me take another example. And this is what we do in maths, in physics, in chemistry, in all sciences. We do a concept versus formula-based learning. We teach in the formula base. The formulas take precedence over concept building in teaching. And we know that concept building is important for the student to visualize. And this visualization is important for all future learning process. Visualization also makes it possible to handle complex problems. And the visualization makes it possible to appreciate new addition to the existing knowledge. But we don't do this. I'll just bring it to you, exercise which is given in a maths book. Now, I'll spend little time. I mean, what it says is calendar magic. You take a calendar and draw this square in it with the 6 numbers. And then ask the students, description is given, and many of you can recognize from which book I'm talking it about. What is the sum of these numbers in the square? And then, it will take some time, this girl says, but this girl says, no, it is simple. Take the smallest number, that is 3, add 8 to it, it becomes 11, multiply by 9, it becomes 99, and 99 is the sum of these numbers. From where do you get this formula? Are we teaching students a formula? And by teaching the formula, look what is going to happen. And then there is a small boy sitting there. He says, oh, but just take the middle number. The middle number is 11. And multiply by 9, you get 99. That's the sum of these numbers. So you have provided 2 magics without letting the student know what is involved in it. And now I will extend this problem. And then you will find what the fun happens. Now, this is that original problem. You can see 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12. These are the numbers in a certain sequence. The smallest number is 3, add 8 to it, 11, multiply by 9, 99. This is sum of all numbers. Why can't we teach the student a simple way of handling this? That look, if you have these numbers, if I take a number in a particular column, then this is middle number is 10. This 3 is 10 minus 7. This 17 is 10 plus 7. So if I add these numbers, minus 7 plus 7 cancels. And therefore, the sum of this column is 3 times the central number, first thing. Now, if I take this particular row, this number is 1 less, this number is 1 more. And therefore, if I sum it, then it should be 3 times the central number. And therefore, the sum of all numbers is 9 times the middle number. And why 9? Because there are 9 numbers in it. This is so easy to give that logic to the student, but we want to teach it in a formula base. Now, this has nothing to do with calendar. Let me see that if I then say, oh, I 3 by 3, I am going to draw 5 by 5 matrix. Now ask the student, what is the sum? Now, if the student knows the concept, no, this is 25 into 25, 625. Now, instead of 1 to 7, I'm extending that 1 to 8 and taking 3 by 3. How do you expect the student to solve? Will he solve the same manner? Take the small number, add 8 to it and multiply by 9, you'll get a wrong answer. But then, if he understands the logic, you have the right answer. Now, this is exactly what the new education policy talks about on elimination of rote learning. And mind these words, teachers will prepare their own quizzes, examinations, and portfolio assessments in this spirit to track students' progress and revise personalized lesson plans accordingly for each student as needed. And what I have informed you, what I have provided you is just an example of this preparation by a teacher. And at a higher level, we know that internationally people have been using concept inventories. The force concept inventory is a common thing for the physics teachers. We don't use it. And the statistic shows over 80% students can state Newton's third law, However, less than 15% fully understand it. In India, if you take the statistics, then you will be startled that many of our students do not understand it properly. An example, I mean, it's just bringing an example. Now, there is a person sitting here with a cannon and says that if there is if a ball is fired, which is going to be the trajectory? Don't solve. Don't take the equation and put numbers. You should be in a position to visualize that what will happen to the fate of the ball. Will it go like A, B, C, D, E? Why can't we develop such kind of concept inventories? And there are concept inventories available in the literature. Why don't we use for various subjects? Another important thing that we need to do in our education is to develop ability to reflect and extend. And we have ignored this aspect altogether. New education policy talks about critical thinking, this, that. All this is pointing out to this. Can we develop ability to reflect and extend? And our education system, ancient education system, had such a wonderful ways of teaching us how to reflect and extend. I'll just bring it to you a beautiful story from Chandogya Upanishad. And it's a dialogue between Narad and Sanat Kumar. So Narad visits Sanat Kumar and tells him that you teach me something. Sanat Kumar says, oh, but what have you learned so far? And the first line, that 7.1.2, is what Narada says. Rigved, I have learned Rigved, I have learned Yajurved, Samved, then 4 Ved, then Itihasa, Purana, Panchama Vedas, and then it says that I have learned Deva Vidya, Brahma Vidya, Bhuta Vidya, Kshatra Vidya, Nakshatra Vidya, Sarpa Deva Jana Vidya. I have learned everything. And then Sanat Kumar says, oh, you have taken only names. These are all names. It's like asking a student today, what did you learn? It's like physics, chemistry, maths, biology, English, Sanskrit. Oh, but these are all names. It doesn't say what you have learned. And then Narada asks, is there something better than names? And then, see the dialogue. Speech is superior to name. And then again, next question. The mind is superior to speech. The will is superior to mind. The intelligence is superior to willpower. Meditation is superior to intelligence. And Vijnana, brought it here for Vijnana Bharati. Vijnana, the meaning is the practical application of knowledge is certainly superior to meditation. You need to explore. Don't just tell me all the names. This is what the message Sanat Kumar gives to Narad. Such a wonderful story we have forgotten in our education system. What we do in our education is we focus too much on facts and figures, and we do not allow the student to explore. And what it does is it kills creativity, analytical thinking, reasoning skills, curtails inquisitiveness, creates regimented and conditioned mindset. Students seldom expose his or her strengths and weaknesses. It all begins from the primary school and continues forever. Now, I'll bring just one illustration of this. This is one PISA question I have brought to you. And this is, there is a paragraph given and the question is asked. Okay, what is the paragraph? And it requires the student to reflect and extend. And our students fail. Now, the paragraph reads it. Alarming phenomena is threatening bee colonies all over the world. This phenomena is called bee colony disorder. Colony collapse occurs when bees abandon the beehives. Separated from hives, the bees die. So colony disorder has caused deaths of tens of billions of bees. The next paragraph is colony collapse has effect beyond bees. People who study birds have observed this impact. Sunflower is food for bees, and some types of birds. Bees feed on the nectar of sunflower while birds feed on seeds. Given this relation, why might the disappearance of bees result in decline of population of other birds? This is the question. Now, all that answer is somewhere here. And this is where the student needs to reflect and extend the given knowledge. Now, instead of waiting for the answer, let's see this. Sunflower is the food for bees and some type of birds. Bees feed on the nectar of sunflower while the birds feed on the seeds. When the bees feed on the nectar of sunflower, they also do pollination. the pollination results in formation of seeds. So if the bees hives collapse and bees die, then there won't be pollination, and therefore there won't be seeds, and therefore the population of other birds also will be less. This is all the answer, this is called the reflection and extending the given knowledge. Another aspect that we need to do is we need to connect the knowledge delivered in the school with the real life problem. Whatever taught in the school and what they experience outside, there is no connectivity. And also we need to address students' belief. Why is this worth learning? How does it connect it with the real world? Make students aware of the application of knowledge. We seldom do it. Now, there is a wonderful story from Panchatantra, the four Brahmins and a dead lion. And that story is that informal component of the Indian education system. How and when to use or not to use your knowledge. And this is all told in a very, very subtle manner. Now, I have been talking in Inspire camps. These are for the 11th and 12th standard students. I don't teach them nanotechnology. I don't teach them quantum computers. I don't teach them anything. I start with this simple question. And this simple question tells you how much they have learned. The problem is that, look, there is a circle and I have forgotten the center of the circle. Can you give me a method by which I can find the center of this circle? And I'll tell you, invariable answer that I will get is, oh, I'll fold that paper and along the fold will be the diameter. And then I would say, well, that circle could be drawn on a wall. Are you going to break that wall, fold that wall? Give me some way of finding it. Now, once I was telling one industrialist friend of mine that, look, I give this problem to our the students of 11th and 12th standard, and they cannot solve this. And that my industrialist friend said, hey, how did you discover this problem? I said, well, he said, look, I gave this problem to a chemical engineer in my company and he could not solve. I said, why this problem is important for you? He said, oh, it's very simple. I have these oil drums and I wanted to add a hook to these drums so that they can be lifted. Now, this hook has to be put, you have to fix one small putty there and at the center, so that hook should be at the center of it. And therefore, that chemical engineer was expected to find the center of that circle, which is the face. And this is exactly the problem that you're asking. Wonderful. Okay, so now this question, the students have difficulty. And then I say, look, I'll give you one way. What you do is you draw a chord AB and at 90 degrees you draw a chord BC and then join AC and take the center of AC. It is the center of this circle. What I have used a principle is that angle in half circle is a right angle triangle. So I create a right angle triangle and create a half circle. I just done the ulta. Now you sensitize and say that, look, this is not the only way of doing it. There needs to be other ways of doing it. Can you think? And now if you keep coaxing, the students start coming forward. And then I'll give you some methods my students in the Inspire camp suggested. Oh, take a chord AB, take a chord CD, then take the perpendicular bisectors, and the perpendicular bisectors will meet at the center of the circle. I said, very good, you have done it. Then some other student will come forward and say, sir, there is a still simpler method. I draw chord AB, and then I take the perpendicular bisector and then extend it on both sides. It will cross the circle at E and D, and therefore E and D is the diameter. Then I'll take the center. Very good. Now you need to sum up. Ask the question, which solution requires minimum number of steps? That's called efficiency. And which solution is possible with a given set of instruments? That is, you're putting a constraint. I'll say, oh, I'm not going to give you a divider. Can you still do it? It's a constraint. And then give a message to the students. Innovation or research is to find out an efficient solution given the number of constraints. This is how you introduce the innovation and research at this particular stage. What we do at that level, we start telling them nanotechnology. We start telling them astrophysics. We start telling them space physics and space technology. Look, in this country, it is required for us to make our students aware of the age appropriate ideas of research and innovation. Don't overload them. And this overloading has created a problem. And I must honestly tell you, I keep talking to many students. In one camp, I started talking to them on Make in India. I gave 1 hour talk. What is the wonderful thing about the Make in India? And at the end of that talk, I said, if you have any questions, please ask. And there were queues. On the right side, there was boy students standing. On the left side, girl students. That hall had about 700 students. I said, okay, fine. What is the first question? Sir, you have not talked about the black holes. Oh, yeah, I didn't talk. I talked about Make in India. Then I got a doubt. And how many people have the question like this? Oh, everybody has a question like, sir, what are the limits of universe? Is the universe really expanding? And what are the gravitational waves and all that? I said, look, I have some idea about this. I can give you the answer, but you need to answer one question. I'll pose you one question. In this hall, there are these tube lights. That hall had an old type tube lights. I said, every tube light has a starter and a choke. Do you know what is the role of a choke and role of a starter? None of the students know about it. So what we are doing is we are putting some ideas of space, these gravitational waves, expanding universe. This remains only an information. And let me also tell you, then I turned to the girl's side and said, okay, your question. That girl asked me a question. Sir, there are chlorofluorocarbons. I said, yes, I know there are chlorofluorocarbons. What about them? They create an ozone hole. I said, oh, yes, I know. But why are you worried about ozone hole? Now that girl gets, sir, ozone hole, the ultraviolet rays and skin cancer, all this is, I said, look, I am on the equator and I get so much of ultraviolet radiation. The ozone hole you are talking about is in northern Canada and on that New Zealand, and they have the fair skin. So any small ultraviolet light seeps through that ozone hole, may lead to cancer. Well, I have got dark skin. I have got that stupid pigment in my skin. I don't need to worry about it. But I want to ask you a question that just 500 meters away from your college is River Ganga. I was talking in Varanasi. And in that Ganga, there is a large concentration of chromium, entire Ganga up to Dhaka. And the number of intestine and stomach cancer cases in that belt is 60% above the National Cancer Registry. Are you aware of it? They are not aware of it. They are aware what is happening in Canada. They are aware of what is happening in United States. And therefore, I always tell them that, look, science and technology is around you, not beyond you. We have been always giving them examples where what is beyond them. And that is what we need to. We need to make them aware that we also have problems of a similar kind. And it is you who are supposed to be solving those problems. Right from childhood, if I give them the problems which are faced by the Westerners or other societies, they will try to find out answers for those problems and not to our problems. Now, there is another question that how do we handle students' misconceptions? In Indian education system, we have no mechanism for it. We need to create that mechanism. And I'll just give you one example, what happens in 7th and 8th standard, how it percolates down to the PhD level. And this is one question. Again, I have brought it from PISA maths question. Helen got a new bike. It has a speedometer which sits on the handlebar, which tells her the distance she travels and her average speed for the trip. Helen rode her bicycle from home to the river, which is 4 kilometers away. It took her 9 minutes. She rode home using a shorter route of 3 kilometers. This took her 6 minutes. What was Helen's average speed in kilometer per hour for the trip to the river and back? If you draw a figure like this is home and this is river. The onward journey 4 kilometers in 9 minutes, backward journey 3 kilometers in 6 minutes. That's all that paragraph says. And therefore, the total distance travel is 7 kilometers, 4 plus 3, 7 kilometers. Total time is 9 plus 6, 15 minutes. and therefore answer is average speed is 28 kilometers per hour. Now I have given this problem to my students in the Indian schools. How do they get? They say home to river, there is a speed. So there is 4 kilometers in 9 minutes. So per hour is 26.67 kilometers. Backward, river to home, the speed is 3 kilometers in 6 minutes. Therefore, it is 30 kilometers per hour. So average speed is onward speed plus backward speed divided by 2. Get an answer, neat answer 28.34 kilometers per hour. This is a misconception. And this misconception exists across India. Why I am making this statement is for the following reason. Inspired by this question, in one of the PhD entrance examination, I added this question. And its wording is exactly same. This is for a person who has passed his MSc and going to is applying for PhD program. A person walks a distance x with a velocity v1 and further walks x more distance in the same direction with velocity v2. What is the average velocity of the person? And we give 4 choices. V is equal to v1 plus v2 by 2. 2 by v is equal to 1 by v1 plus 1 by v2. V is equal to square root of v1 v2. And 1 by v is equal to 1 by v1 plus 1 by v2. Of course, all our students, most of our students will point to A. That is what the misconception. But if you go by the logic, the time travel for the first leg is x by v1, t2 is x by v2, total time is t is equal to t1 plus t2, which is x into 1 by v1 plus 1 by v2. Total distance travel is 2x, and therefore average speed is v is a total distance by total time, and therefore it is x divided by 2x divided by x into 1 by v1 plus 1 by v2. X will cancel, bring that 2 here, it becomes v by 2. Invert it, 2 by v is equal to 1 by v1 plus 1 by v2. So this is the answer. Now you see what is that misconception has stayed, and this problem when I'm talking about for the PhD entrance test, there are students from across the country are appearing for this. They make a mistake and majority of them write A as an answer. So there must be a way to handle the students' misconceptions. Now I'll just quickly go through the rest of the slides because I'm really taking more time. Collaborative learning in the classroom. This is absent in our case. We teach students to compete with each other rather than collaborate with each other. And for this, I'll bring a small anecdote. And this is the anecdote about my daughter and her trust with the Canadian geography. Her 3rd, 4th, 5th standard she studied in Canada. In one of the classes, geography classes, they had geography of Canada. What teacher did was, as many provinces is Canada, the teacher made those many groups of the students and asked the group students, you go refer to the libraries, your textbooks, and find out. So some group got Ontario, some group got Quebec as a province, some group got Alberta as a thing, so on and so forth. And each group has to go around, find out information, about 30 minutes or so, and then report to the teacher. And the teacher would say, well, this information is important, this information is not so important. Go ahead, again do that. What happens? This is what is called as the inquiry-based learning. You engage students, allow them to explain, explore, and then you explain if they have doubt, and then expect them to elaborate and then evaluate. What happens is, after this one round is done, that every group has studied a particular province, then at the end, each group has to teach the other students what they have learned about that province. So if some group has learned about Manitoba province, then that group will teach other students what is Manitoba, what is the geography, and what is it. So this is what, and through that process, the students evaluate their learning, and other students also evaluate how much learning they have done. So this is that 4E cycle, 5E cycle. What is that? This is the teaching learning process. Students research the topic using time in the class. Students develop questions that they are hungry to answer. Students present what they have learned. Students reflect on what worked about the process and what did not. And the teacher's role is to give feedback to the students and encourage students to plan, monitor, and evaluate their own learning. In this process, students learn deeper, and wider than before. And this is what is called as an inquiry-based learning. And there are various methods which teachers use to support a learning cycle, create interest, create inquisitiveness, raise questions, facilitate cooperative learning, and so on and so forth. And this is exactly what we call as a constructivism. What I have told you in an anecdotal form is the theory of constructivism. The theory of constructivism suggests that the teaching does not imply transferring information to children. Furthermore, learning is not a process of passive imbibing of information from books or teachers. Children construct meaning themselves when the teaching and learning process is based on an interactive classroom situation in which children are actively engaged in learning. Now let me complete that story of my daughter's trust with the Canadian geography. When she came back, we came back to India, she had an Indian geography. And in her school, well, the teacher used to read out from the book, and that's the way she learned the geography of India. And today, she's pretty old now, but if you ask her something about the geography of Canada, she would still say, yes, this is what it is. If she's asked something about the geography of India, she has forgotten. And that is according to the well-known statement, I forgot what I was taught. I remember what I learned. Let the learning be given a chance in our education system. And finally, I'll bring something, the skill development, which is nearly absent in our school education system and is a vestige of the English Education Act 1835. What English Education Act perceived was something like this. Please do not mind my words, but this was what the reflection should have been. That the Englishmen thought that the Indians are uncivilized people and they need to be made civilized. So let's teach them our language, let's teach them our history, our geography, our knowledge, and they will get civilized. On the other hand, at the same point of time, the education in Europe was looking at education which turns human into human power, human capital, so that it can be invested in the economic progress. But it didn't happen here. And here it was only this making our students civilized. Even today, we continue to draw that English way of looking at us. And our idea of education is that, oh, we'll bring civility to the students and they will become cultured and all that. Well, the primary motive of education is to turn human into human capital. And the place where the human capital exists, there is a job for people, and such societies have a peace and prosperity. So there is an indirect benefit that comes out of education. Well, that we'll discuss at some time. And therefore, in absence of our skills, our school system does a great job of getting students prepared for more school. And this is my honest opinion about the education today. Aim of primary school is to prepare a student for a secondary school. Aim of secondary school is to prepare a student for college, and aim of college is to prepare a student for master or PhD. It continues. The schools are not preparing students to go out and deal with real life. This is the problem. Now, in the Indian system, we used to talk about 16 Vidyas and 64 Kalas. What were those Kalas? And this is, I am bringing it to you from Vatsayana and Sushruta, 600 BC. And few shlokas I have brought in here, but what they mean is examination and valuation of gold and gems is a Kala. Kala is not dancing and painting and all the art forms. Look at the Kalas. The examination and valuation of gold and gems. Art of alloying and separating metals is a Kala. Art of extracting alkali is a Kala. Knowledge of coloring of gems and jewels is a Kala. Knowledge of mines and quarries is a Kala. Art of piercing and incinerating stones and metals is a Kala. Knowledge of combination of metals and herbs and plants is a Kala. These were all skills and trades which were imparted to the younger generation. Unfortunately, after the English education and after the after India was made a marketplace for Western goods, we lost all these skills and trades. They were not replaced by the new skills and traits which were required for the contemporary times. And we continue to take pride in our education as it is delivering the civility to our students. And this is where there were some intellectuals who were against this particular form of education. And the first education commission, which was set up in India, was a Hunter Commission, 1882. And there was a great man called Jyotiba Phule. He gave a deposition before the Hunter Commission. And I must bring it to you. Somebody thinking in 1882, what he said, the course of instruction in primary school should consist of reading, writing, and accounts, and knowledge of general history, general geography, and grammar, and also an elementary knowledge of agriculture and few lessons on moral duties and sanitation. In connection with lessons in agriculture, a small model farm where a practical instruction can be given would be a decided advantage, and if really efficiently managed, would be productive of the greatest good to the country. See, though that time, 1882, the only skill that the society had was the agriculture. But then, and it says that, look, there has to be practical demonstration in the school. The textbook in use require revision and recasting as much as they are not practical or progressive in their scope. Lessons on technical education and morality, sanitation and agriculture, and some useful arts, these are the skills, should be interspersed among them in a progressive series. And then also says, I think teachers for primary school should be trained in skills who will not feel ashamed to hold the handle of a plow or the carpenter's axe when required. It's the teacher who is going to transfer those skills to the students, and therefore the teacher should not be ashamed to hold the handle of a plow because he has to teach, or the carpenter's axe, the carpentry. In the new education policy, the carpentry has been made. There is a word that is among the skills. And how are we going to handle it if the teachers, if we need teachers who will not feel ashamed of holding the carpenter's instrument. And then nobody took care of this, 1882. And then fortunately in 2018, we got up and then said, this is a news item, to boost employability, schools to have skill development training from class 9. So whatever we did not do for 150 years, now we have started thinking that we need to do that. And that's exactly the Indian tradition. And finally, I want to give a small sermon to all of us. We have a fixed yardstick in our society to measure success, and the teachers are mostly responsible for it. And can we get over this mindset? And this is my sincere appeal. What is that mindset? A student is good if he is good in all subjects. Art subjects are not as important as math, science, and English. A good student will reproduce what is taught in the class. And a student with greater than 99% aggregate marks is a good student. This is all what we have been harping on. And this is typically the mindset that we had during the British Raj. And here is a cartoon which I show to teachers very often. There is a master sitting there, and there are animal and birds which are lined up there. And the teacher is saying, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same test, exam. Please climb that tree. So even elephant has to climb that tree, monkey has to climb, and even fish has to climb that tree. Is that a great uniformity that we have brought? Is that right? And this is some friend of mine gave me the top career tracks of 2018: animation, multimedia, fashion design, event manager, interior decorator, filmmaking, script writing, acting, IT, cloud, data, beauty, modeling, cosmetology, social sciences, humanities. You ask yourself a question, which of these professions are you preparing your students? By making those statements, the question is, we are still carrying on that old mindset. And what cartoon I showed you was what was said by Albert Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And I want to ask all of us, including me, how many of our students we have made to believe that he or she is a stupid? And just to give you little more information, just last week I delivered a talk at Nehru Science Center. You can go to the Nehru Science Center YouTube channel. And that whole story is how a teacher influences students' career options. It's a great story. And you will see that how we have been influencing students in the wrong or right way. There are many more gap areas in today's Indian education system. And these gaps, in a way, there are gaps in the way we train our young minds. Can we make honest efforts to identify and address these gap areas? It doesn't require great funding. It doesn't require great investments. And finding those gaps and identifying them, addressing them is the only way to rediscover the Indian education, to bring the glory of the past and work for the educational leadership. And we teachers are the only ones who can lead this campaign. It is in your moments of decision that the country's destiny is shaped. And it is you have to make that. Let there be a policy or that be not a policy. It's your decision that you have to take. If you do not take, then when I was writing this slide, I was suddenly reminded of a great Subhashitam which I had read during my school days. Ha hanta hanta nalinim gaja. And some of you might know this. There is how the destiny is in your hands and how you can shape your destiny. This is a bee which got stuck in the lotus in the evening. Just the lotus closed its petals and it got trapped inside. And then the bee could come out by penetrating through those lotus petals. But it thinks that, well, the night will pass, the dawn will arrive, and the sun will rise, and the lotus shall bloom again, and then I will escape myself. But unfortunately, before all that happens, ha hanta hanta nalinim gajavujjara, an elephant comes and uproots the lotus dies, and therefore it does not bloom, and that bee got stuck in that lotus forever. This is your moment of decision that the country's destiny is shaped. And while we do this, these are my last slides, there is a Sangatana Sukta. And I think whether you have followed this lecture or not, whether you have taken interest in this lecture or not, at least this shloka, this verse, which is the last verse of Rigveda, you must all recite in your mind. Samaniva kuteha samana radhyaniva. What it says is that if you want to build an organization, if you want to build Indian education system to be on the top of the world, what you need is what is said in the last verse of Veda. Let our conclusions be one. Let our hearts be one. Let our minds be alike. And may all these factors make our organizational power an impressive one. With this is my last sloka, and this is, I'm not an educationist. There are great educationists in the country. However, I have opened my mind through the practical experiences which I have generated over the years and started giving the problems which exist. And the meaning of this, the wise should learn to accept the wisdom from anybody. I am that anybody, even from a child. Doesn't the small night lamp light up things which the sun cannot? So there is nothing like only an educationist or a great person should talk about education. It is for me as well as for you. We can talk and we need to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Lot of thanks. Sir, you made such a motivational talk with us. You give such an inspirational talk for us that I don't have any words to say about this talk, because you made us understand our responsibilities through rediscovering Indian education. I'm very much thankful for you, sir. Now I request our core team member of Shiksha Shilpi, Shri Manoj ji, to monitor a short session of this question answers. So we have some questions in the chat box.
Yes,
Manoj.
we have already received some questions. Sir, good evening.
Yeah.
The very first question we have received is from Onkar Tiwari. He says,
Uh-huh.
despite of knowing from Onkar Tiwari, he says,
Yes.
despite knowing that rote learning is not going to do great, why educational institutions like IIT, IIMs still follow it?
Oh, there is, this is something, is a perception of Omkar Tiwari. Uh, I teach in IIT. I have got many of my colleagues. We do discuss. We never never ask students to do rote learning. In fact, uh, I have been conducting all examinations, open book examination. Don't remember anything. You must understand. Formula you can refer to from your notes or from the books. So it is wrong to say that the IITs do follow rote learning. They do not. I mean, see
Okay.
that. Hmm?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
So I think that is very clear. Any more questions? Please place your questions here. We are running short of time, so I would request all to place questions from which we can select few good. My parents constantly ask me to find what is my favorite subject, but I am confused among the events around me, forcing me to decide my profession from class 9. Is a question from Abhishika Chaudhary, a
Yes.
girl.
Yes, that's a very important question, very interesting question. And I keep talking to students in the primary and secondary class on this. Let me elaborate this answer in a little bit. I conducted a survey, and I used to ask a question: what do you want to do when you grow up? Hmm? And then the largest number of votes you get for is I want to become a cricketer. Hmm? Nobody says that they want to be a part of the film industry, although that also has got a lot of grammar. Then people will say that, oh, I want to become a doctor, engineer, a lawyer, or something like that. And then very few people in they say that I want to become a poet. I had one of the choices. Would you like to become a poet? No. Would you like to become a scientist? A little more votes for scientists. What happens today is the students are exposed to sports much more than they're exposed to poetry. And this is where the students tend to think that cricket or any sports is better than writing poetry. But remember one thing, that if the country has to progress, it requires not only cricketers, not only doctors, not only engineers, it requires economists, it requires poets, it requires good writers, it requires all kinds of people. But we do not encourage or we do not expose our students to those many things. And this is where I would request that Vigyan Bharati can really start that kind of a scheme where once in a week you bring people who are experts in different areas. Once you can call a scientist, other time you can call an engineer, a doctor. You can also call a pilot to tell youngsters his experiences. Let's expose our students to the variety of professions we have, not to the limited ones. And that would do a very good job. And all we career choice. And you certainly should watch that talk which I had given at Nehru Science Center. It also says that the teacher influences and the teachers, this is what you do, and the student tend to accept it. So this is what happens. So we need to introduce our students to variety of professions.
Thank you, sir. We have a question here from Nara Simha. Why teachers enter into teacher questioning students mode? Instead, students do observation and question as our ancient India did. So she has a
Yes,
question.
absolutely. And what you are right on the in the right track. We need to introduce the do observations, questions. This is the part that the students need to do. In our education system, it is heavily based on teaching and not on learning. And therefore, I have been always advocating that let learning be given a chance. Let students learn. Let them observe, let them read. And the job of a teacher is only to provide a guidance. If they are citing somewhere, reading something else in the context, then that is what the teacher should monitor, and they should do it in cooperative manner. They will run better. You're absolutely right, and we need to change our teaching methods. Constructivism is the one.
Yes, sir. So here is one more question from Miss Jarna Das. She's asking, she says that she has tried to implement practical concept with the theory in scheduled period allotted by school, but due to lack of time, she failed to do so. So what can be done on this? Especially this is a problem which is being faced by all the teachers who are actually putting efforts to make clear the concepts and all these kind of.
Yes, absolutely right. And you see, the uh, organizing your lecture is a is an art by itself. I have been telling the teachers that look, teaching is an art, it is a science, it is a technology, it's a skill, all rolled together. So if you take only one part, then you may not be in a position to complete a certain thing in a given time. But then you need to weed out what are the extra things you are putting into this, and manage your lecture within that time. That is what becomes important. Uh, but suppose if you find the time short, let's say 45 minutes short enough, there is also an important issue that you need to take care of the cognitive load on the students. And the cognitive load theory tells you that in a given classroom, you cannot teach more than 5 concepts. Otherwise, none of those things will convert into a permanent memory. They will not get fixed, they will not be coded. And therefore, this has to be done very carefully. Unfortunately, we have seen it many times, we do not plan it properly. The planning is the answer. The teaching is an art, science, technology, skills all rolled in together.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Because it does not require only one way. It is a combination of
Yes.
number of techniques.
Yes.
So that is the skill of a actual ideal teacher who can
Yes.
utilize those all the ways and means. Here is a question from Runalini Deshmukh. Will teacher be given free hand to change the learning method?
Oh yes, I mean this is what the new education policy
Yes.
talks about. That every teacher will create his own examples, own questions, own exercises, and own portfolios for every student. So this is left to you.
Yes.
That
Yes.
it is supposed to give you that freedom. Now, what I will also say is that how to use that freedom. That would That is what Vigyan Bharati is promising you, that they will organize this training camp so that you know how to use your freedom. Absolutely. I mean, it is your method of, and there is one more thing which I have been also telling the teachers across the country, that if you evolve a new teaching technique, and if you find it is good, write a paper on that, publish in an educational journal so that it is available to other teachers in the country. Don't keep it to yourself, and you will also get a publication. See, Indian education system does not have data, and this is the way to generate data. You adopt a teaching technique, you experiment it, you find out it is successful, write a small piece of paper, publish it in the journals. And there are NCRT journals where I'm seeing that many of the journals would accept such papers on the education techniques and make it available. So that's how we need to make this whole education system vibrant one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So last few questions we would take. Here is a question from Dr. P.K. Joshi from HBCSE. He asked, can you talk about the non-academic load which teachers have? Many who want their art of teaching to develop are flooded with these non-academic activities.
Yeah, this is a problem that exists, and this is a policy decision that the government has to take. Uh,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
See whether the teacher should be doing non-academic work or not. But on the other hand, many instances I have met people, and they say that the teachers are the only ones who can do that job in a decent manner, no one else. So that the systems have such a great faith in the teachers that they want you to do it. But I'm certainly with you that the teachers need to develop their themselves in art of teaching, science of teaching, technology of teaching, and skill of teaching, and that they can do if they do not have to do this non-academic work. Absolutely true.
Yes, yes. Sir, I have a last question on behalf of all the participants. And that is, sir, in the context of this new education policy, the aspects which we have derived or discussed in this the session, basically the activity-based learning, the child-centered learning, how do you look upon and in this context as far as this policy is concerned?
Well, I mean, I will say that whether there is a policy or there is not a policy, what I have talked about are the fundamental principles in educating young people. Education is not something like pouring information in the heads of our students. That is what old time the Aristotle had said, that teaching is not pouring oil in an empty pot. It's something more than that. It's like igniting a flame, and
Yes,
that
yes.
igniting the flame is the job of teachers. And if I tell you I mean, this is again, I have a request to Vigyan Bharati. The great book Nanul, which is 11th, 12th century, 13th century book, which talks about how to teach. And it also says that, oh, at the end of your learning, you should also write a book as a project, Means it's all involved in it. It should be translated into Hindi and all that. If you see, I was trying to get it on the internet, and then this is another point which reluctantly I love to add, that first thing which I get Tamil to English translation is a thesis from University of Malay and not from India. This is something which this is what happens with us. But then these ancient ways, see today we talk about behavioral economics. The economic principles are same. However, the economic decisions change from people to people. In the pandemic, the way we would take an economic decision is not going to be the same thing as the Americans would do it. In the same way, the education technology is going to be different for the Indians and from that from the Americans. I have been also always saying that, oh, you are reading the textbooks written by an American author, he does not know the Indian mindset. I need to write it for my own students. But we don't take it forward. And this is what that Indianization does not mean anything else. This is what we need to do for this. And therefore, this learning from the ancient literature is going to be important for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. In fact, it is almost time, and unfortunately, we'll not be able to take more questions. But
Oh, no,
sure,
sorry, I exceeded my time. That's all.
sir. But certainly, we'll take up these questions and pass on to you in due course, and would like to get
Yeah, we'll
associated. Thank
certainly
you very much.
discuss those. Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Manojji. Now I invite Dr. Arvind Ranade sir to conclude about this Shiksha Shilpi conclave. Dr.
Uh,
Arvind Ranade.
Thank you, Ajay ji. I think what else we as an no as an organizing team, as a weaver, as a person who has to play a significant role can expect. I think the speaker has not only covered what the role of a teacher should be, but he has taught all of us as an organizer, as an a person, as a facilitator, what the role facilitator has to do, what a role as a teacher has to do, how the student has to learn the things. I think in a holistic way he has covered each and every aspect of an education, And he has made us realize how the ancient education system of ours was so much valuable in every aspect. The kind of references he has given to us made us realize that how well versed with the kind of requirements of the society was in place. And perhaps, and he has also given a good amount of kind of recommendations for all of us as a Vijnana Bharati should do. So I can promise, Professor Jagtap sir, that yes, we are committed and we will certainly do our best. As you to start with, we will certainly go for the book translation that you have referred, which is essential, especially who covers the every aspect. And really, as Ajay Majan just said, there is no word to say that how the talk is all about. But the every aspect you covered, and we are very thankful to you for such a wonderful talk that you gave. I just would like to mention to all our viewers that this kind of the leaders of our country are going to help us in reshaping and building the nation in a different way, wherein all aspect of the education system will be covered. So we will keep on bringing the professor, speakers like Professor Jagtap, and just would like to mention that Shiksha Shilpi is one of the platform through which we are trying to cover the every aspect and how the teacher should be. And with this, I just would like to mention that Shiksha Shilpi, which is the complementing to our Vidyarthi Vigyan Manthan, which is the National Science Talent Search Examination, which is also beyond the book. And with that, we also appeal to all the teachers, viewers, to please visit our Vidyarthi Vigyan Manthan website, that is vvm.org.in, wherein the students are going to get an opportunity to show their talent and also learn about the Indian contribution to science. So with this, I would like to say thanks to the speaker on behalf of an organizing part of an Shiksha Shilpi. Now I will request Dr. Jayanta Joshi to have a formal vote of thanks from all of us.
Listening to Dr. Jagtap is a treat. And fortunately, several times I had, whether it is molecular physics or physical chemistry, or it is whether Swachh Bharat, so correct in special focus on science, or whether it is a made in India, the way he tells, it addresses, everybody feels that he is telling to me. And that is his skill. He's a teacher, not only a scientist, he's a very good teacher. I will say professional professor. He is a way, matlab, what he will not leave any ambiguity in a listener's mind. So I express my sincere thanks to Dr. B.N. Jagtap. He is a mentor for us, and I always keep on whenever I have some problems. In fact, many times, whether it is Marathi Vigyan Parishad or Vigyan Bharati, whenever we have some collaboration with the BRC, we used to approach him, and he will give a very simple solution to whatever the problem is. I express my sincere thanks to Professor Jagtap. At the same time, our mentor, mentor of Shiksha Shilpi, Dr. Arvindji Ranade, he is always guiding us to have a maximum productive, or what we can say, the most enriching things should reach to the listener. So his guidance is always valuable for us. I express my sincere gratitude for him also. Dr. Ajay Ji Mahajan, who is the national coordinator of Shiksha Shilpi, he also keeps on motivating us. My colleague in our colleague this core team of Shiksha Shilpi, Sri our Manoj Manojji, and Rajkumarji, who is the technical coordinator of all these things. I express my sincere thanks to each and everyone. And last but not least, we teachers who have the major role to take this mission forward. I express my thanks to you all, and I assure Dr. Jagtap that we'll keep this motion ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
I appeal to the entire teaching community associated in some way with the Shiksha Shilpi program to register themselves by visiting our site, that is shikshashilpi.vvm.org.in. I'm very much thankful for active participation in every activity of Shiksha Shilpi program and hope that with your kind cooperation and support, शिक्षा शिल्पी रजिस्ट्रेशन will reach to a new height. फिर से एक बार सभी को मेरा सादर प्रणाम और आभार. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.